So I'd like to say Barak the Hawa, Barak the Hawashah, Barak the Hawa, Barak the Hawashah, Bahashem, Rakahagadash, double honors to the apostles and elders of GMS, and salutations to you brothers out there that's doing this work in truth and sincerity. So this is real quick, Ecclesiasticus chapter 3 verse 15. That which have been is now, and that which is to be have already been, and the Most High require that which is past. Right? So you got to understand, man, is that, well, ultimately speaking on you so-called Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans, you got to understand that that which was done in the past is still happening now, man. You know, that's why the scripture says, when you go to the book of Ecclesiasticus chapter 1 verse 9, you know, it says, the thing that have been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there's no new thing under the sun. See, there's no new thing under the sun, man. And what a lot of you so-called Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans got to understand is that you're still in the same position that you was in 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 years ago. And you so-called Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans, you tend to want to forget what happened in the past, like it never happened. You know, but it did happen, and it's still happening now. Though you're not in a yoke of iron, though you're not walking around with chains on and a chain around your neck, your ass is still a slave. Let's just say this, man. If there wasn't no laws or anything like that that went against slavery, these so-called white people, no matter whether not just only them, but the nations outside of you, but ultimately these so-called white people who line comes of Edom, they will still have you in a yoke of iron. Your so-called best friend, who you call that's right next to you, will have your ass in a yoke of iron, man. It's like right now, a lot of you are skipping with them without the chain on your neck, but it was not that long ago where you were skipping with them with the chain on your neck, and you niggas tend to forget that, like, oh, I never been through slavery, but your ancestors was, and you are your ancestors, so you've been through that slavery, right? You've been through that. It's just that you don't have the remembrance of former things, and the scriptures tell you that. Matter of fact, let's get it. This is Ecclesiasticus chapter 1 verse 19. Salakia 19. What is that? I thought it was in the same chapter. But it tells you that there's no remembrance of former things. Let me get it real quick. Bear with me. Lock it. Bear with me for a minute here. That's Ecclesiasticus. I passed it right up. My bad. Ecclesiastes chapter 1 verse 11. I was looking right at it. It says, there's no remembrance of former things. Well, you know what? Let me start up at 9 again. The thing that happened is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. And there's no new thing under the sun. So there's shit that happened, let's say 2,000 plus, 3,000 plus years ago. It's still taking place now. Wickedness that was happening in the ancient times are happening now. You know, homosexuality, transvestites, adultery, worshiping other gods. All of that shit was happening then, and it's happening now. It says, the thing that happened is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. Is there anything whereof it may be said, see this as new? There's nothing new. What's really new, right? And before you start scoffing You could sit here and say, well, cell phone, the vehiculars, the TVs, but it's not talking about that. I can easily go to another scripture where it's going to tell you. Matter of fact, let me just get it, man. Let me just get it. That's Ecclesiastes, the 6th chapter, and you're going to find out um, what it's talking about here. Let me see. I believe that's Ecclesiastes 6 and 10. That which have been is named already. So that which have been is named already. That's why I said that which was happening in the ancient times by these people committing wickedness are back today. Meaning that, again, homosexuality, transvestites, adultery, wickedness, malice, covenances, all of those things that was 2, 3+ thousand years ago is happening today. It's still here today because you are your forefathers. When you die, your spirit just get put into another body. You could go into Second Ezra, the 2nd chapter, Second Ezra, the 14th chapter. You can go to the book of Revelations 1 and 7, and it proves reincarnation, right? It's just that you don't have no remembrance of your past, and I just read it in Ecclesiastes is the 1st chapter that you wouldn't have remembrance of your former life. So Ecclesiastes 6 and 10, that which have been is named already, and it is known that it is men. Neither may he contend with him that is mightier than thou. So that which is done, there's nothing new under the sun. So that which men was doing in the ancient times, you're doing the same things now. And like I said, the wickedness of women are wicked because of men. Because ultimately, the wicked rule the world, but the wicked are men. And as long as men on this earth show themselves to be what they're doing now, then women gonna follow the same fucking thing. You go into the book of Job 10 and 22, there's no order within America, so people just do whatever the hell they want to do. Like I was mentioning before, people don't base their thoughts, opinions, or nothing off that which is righteous, off that which is righteous, which is the scriptures. People base their opinions and thoughts and everything by way of how they feel. And as long as you are living off of feelings, you're not gonna get nowhere with that. So let's go back to Ecclesiastes, the 1st chapter. Ecclesiastes 1 and 9. But I also say, like I said in my video, even being in the truth, and I'll say this, and I'll explain why I'm going to say this. Men in the truth, you're 60% in the world, 40% in the truth. And the reason why I say that is because being in these bodies and having the mindset that we have, your ass is still 60% in the world. Even us being in the truth and we rehearse the righteous acts, our asses is still in the world. Our asses is still thinking like, our asses still in some way think like these people in the world. And then it clicks in our mind like, no, the scriptures don't say that. I got to go about this way. That's why I say 60% in the world, 40% in the truth. So Ecclesiastes 1 and 10, and the scripture says, is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new? It have been already of old time, which was before us. So which was before us? These things were already done. And speaking on electronics, it was even said that they had the information or instructions to build the technology that we had today. But they didn't build the technology we had today because they knew that it was going to just destroy generations and generations after. And when these Edomites came into power, that's when they started bringing out the technology. The technology already been there, right? The technology was already there. Even before the technology came out, and what I want to say, when was the computer first invented? right? Um, so I can bear with me for a second. So the computer was invented um, by a man named Charles Babbage or something like that between 1833 and 1871. Which, you know, the scriptures tell you that Jacob is the former of all things. When you go into that word former, it means the beginner, or it means the I don't want to butcher it. It means matter of fact, let me just get it, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around, I'm going to butcher it. So let's just get it. So when you go into the meaning of this word former and Jeremiah 51 and 19, right? Jacob is the former of all things. The Hebrew word is Yashar.
Strong's H3335. Yatsan. Yatsan.
Right, means to form, fashion, frame, to form, fashion, of human activity, of divine activity, of creation or original creation, of individuals at concept, of Israel as people, to frame, preordained plan. Um, I believe that's figurative, of divine purpose, of a situation. Nephil, to be formed, be created. Paul, to be predetermined, be preordained, to be formed. So there you go. So you have to form, fashion, creation. You have all of these things in here because Jacob is the former of all things. So he's the inventor of all things. Jake is the inventor of all things. He's the beginning of all things. He's the creation of all things. So you can sit here all day and say that a so-called white man invented this, invented that, invented this, but no matter how this the skin tone may look, a lot of these so-called white people that do inventions goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, which goes back to the so-called Black Hispanics and Native Americans. You can even look up into history, even when we was in captivity. When we was in captivity, our people was inventing shit, man, inventing dolls and more things. And these Edomites came, took it, made it their own, patented it, and got rich off of what our people invented. So these are things that you have to do the research on and do the study on, man. This is why it's very important to remember your past, to remember what your enemy has done to you. You might sit here all day talking about I have a so-called white friend or whatever the hell you got, but never forget what your ass had to go through with them. Like I will repeat it again. Not every so-called white person lineage goes back to Esau, Edom, right? Not every one of them do, but you want to be on your P's and Q's when you are around them, because no matter how you see, you could, through the spirit, you could see that not all so-called white people do go back to Esau, Edom, but they will still believe that they are so-called white people, right? If you understand what I'm saying here. So let's go back to this Ecclesiasticus. Ecclesiasticus chapter 1, verse 10. Is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new? It have already of old time, which was before us. And it says, there is no remembrance of former things, neither shall there be any remembrance of things that are to come with those that shall come after. So there is no remembrance of former things, man. So when this is the reason why we don't have, this is the reason why people say, I'm not my forefather, I wasn't there back in the day. The reason why they say that is because they don't want to be blamed for what their people have done unto us. But the thing is, you are your forefathers, man. You are. You cannot get around it. Or if you like it or not, you are your forefathers. Like I said, if we were still living in a time where they had the yoke of iron on Jake's neck, then your ass, your so-called best friend that's next to you, will be the one that held the chain. So you gotta remember it, man. You gotta remember the past. But other than that, man, I'm gonna go ahead and say, Yahabashim al Shabrakatah, Lord willing, this was edifying. Shalom.